Vice President James Igga, thank you so much for giving us some time on SNI. I hope India is being as good a host to you as South Sudan was to us when we went there. I believe you've been to Lucknow, and there was a Africa-India Business Forum where you've now been named as the patron. In terms of investment, India's investment in South Sudan, is the situation conducive enough for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, possible. I appreciate you are coming to me today and get some information. Maybe first about our visit and also about South Sudan. India is a very nice place. The people are very friendly for sure. It is for the last few days we got climate rather
You brought the rain with you.
rather harsh, but I think for the last 2 days we brought some rain. If
Yes.
it is us, but it is a very good place. Yes. In Lugno also we enjoyed the hospitality of the people, and we had quite a good number of meetings, a good number of conferences and so on. So it was very good, and we've been all along telling the Indian people that you come to South Sudan. That's South Sudan. We are now in peace. That we have signed an agreement, and stability is coming back to normal. And South Sudan is quite endowed with a number of natural resources, beginning from metallic minerals like diamond, gold, uranium, copper, tin, and so on.
And oil, of course.
Over 220, then crowned by oil, leave alone the fact that we are 95% of the 648,000 square kilometers of our territory. 95% is quite arable and fertile. So good for
You're
investment.
talking about the peace agreement that was signed in September 2018, but the interim transitional government that was supposed to be set up on May 12th has not happened. It's been pushed back another 6 months to November. In that sense, is there uncertainty for Indian business or worldwide business because of the political situation to come to South Sudan, to invest in South Sudan?
No, not really. There is no uncertainty at all. In fact, that was the request of the opposition party, one of them out of some 20-something. The rest of the opposition parties, including we in the government, we felt that there was really no need to postpone the formation of the government, and that if there were aspects of the agreement which delayed, it is by us being together in the implementation, in the implementing part of the government, that things can even move faster. But they insisted that, no, we better implement A, B, C, D before they come in. So we say, okay, be it, we can give you the 6 months you want, even 1 year, if need be. So we are now indulging really seriously in the implementation. And I think we will form the government of national unity as is scheduled in November.
There is already an Indian business community in South Sudan, in Juba. There's considerable expatriate Indians in neighboring countries, in Ethiopia, who would want to come and invest in South Sudan. But are they also holding back for, like you're saying, for everything to settle down? Or is South Sudan open for business?
Well, there could be some still doubting Thomases, so to speak. But really, if you see Juba now, hotels are full in the airport. You see a lot of influx of people coming in, and most of them desiring to carry out business and so on. Whether from Indians there are in their thousands, of course. But you also have the neighboring countries like Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and so on, and even beyond. People are coming and they are beginning business.
Talking about business, you were talking about oil being the crowning glory of the resources that are there in South Sudan, the possibilities for various investments to come in. Oil itself, India has 2 blocks where they have stakes. ONGC has stakes in 2, about 25% and 24%. But China is the largest investor in the oil sector. Is there competition between the 2 Asian regional giants in South Sudan?
Well, business worldwide is competitive, not necessarily in South Sudan. And I believe globally, it is not only the two, India, China, United States, and the rest are who are trying to compete. But this is a good ambition. It is like finding better ways for the welfare of their own citizens, first and foremost, before the welfare of the individual investors. Yes, currently the Chinese have the largest share of the oil wells, and but you know there are still many more areas really where to explore and even to drill and exploit oil. So if India is still desirous, it can even enter into more wells than what China is doing, because really two-thirds of South Sudan is, can I call it, floating on oil.
And like you mentioned, now South Africa is also exploring for oil in South Sudan. There has been a deal there as yet, has been signed, but that would take to fructify possibly a few years for exploration. In terms of the stakes that say India or China have, there are reports that suggest China is getting its return, even if it's in barrels of oil, not in money. And India is on the backbench in terms of getting its return of its investment in oil. Is that correct?
Well, I know of China really, which is getting some, not the whole of it, some of its return in oil. But oil itself is money. In fact, you even sell at a profit, which is sometimes better than than the sale
cost
itself. Yeah, India is getting its quota, of course, and we get our share from India, from the Indian investors there after they sell, and it is up to them to choose whether they want to continue that way or they would also want to go with crude as the Chinese are doing. The Chinese who are going with crude are mostly those carrying out some infrastructural investment, roads and the rest. India can also enter into roads, by the way, and into other infrastructure, and can pay us instead of us paying them in cash. We could pay them also in crude. This is the fastest way of doing it. Yeah, so the room is really wide.
There has been a lot of uncertainty now in your current neighbor, Sudan, and vis-a-vis oil. Is that a worry of the situation there in terms, because all the pipelines go through Sudan, you just produce oil?
Yes.
Or even the refineries possibly are in Sudan.
Yes, you are right. All the 5 lines are passing through the Sudan and from there to the port to Bor Sudan. They have their refinery near Khartoum, but that does not benefit South Sudan. We intend to have our own refinery.
Which goes down the south?
Yeah, we want to have it
Oh, the
in
refinery,
the south.
not a
Yes,
pipeline.
no, not the pipeline. Our own refinery. So that part of the oil, maybe the major part, can continue to flow in the pipelines. But then we should have something for local and domestic consumption, because it is expensive to allow it go and bring it back as ready material, and it becomes very expensive because of value added naturally.
Right.
So I think we are in good cooperation with the Sudan, regardless of its current situation they are in now.
Vice President, you were mentioning China investing in infrastructure as well, and you said India and other countries should also do that. But the Indian role, even if it's minor, and maybe not in infrastructure for the state, whether it's roads, the engineers with the UN battalions, the Indian battalions, are building short pieces of stretch, whether it's to Malakal or whether it's from Bor to Pibor. A little bit more on India's contribution on the ground through peacekeeping, which brings security, which lets people be secure enough to return to their homes, and their outreach as well, because they're working in humanitarian causes, which touches the roots, the grassroots of people.
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely the Indian contingent, grateful really, are doing their level best. They are assisting our people in various aspects in terms of humanitarian, and our people are also happy to get their cooperation and so on in many aspects really. In the area of infrastructure, road patches here and there. They are also doing it, but we are talking of major investment really, rather than just repairs. What they are doing is, if there is a road cut off, they put some more maram and you know, so that people are able to pass short distances rather than connect it countrywide. Because that will mean major investment. But they are doing well. People are happy with them.
You're talking about connectivity now. You brought the rain to Delhi and the north of India. The rainy season starts in South Sudan as well, in June, July, and goes on for another 6 months. And connectivity there is a big issue. When you became an independent country, you had probably just about 150 kilometers of tarred road, so it becomes extremely important for connectivity. Famine is also a major worry during the rainy season, isn't it, because of this connectivity issue? What is the situation in the rainy period currently?
Well, hunger could come as a result of the spell between the dry season and the rains. When the rains delay like this year, then whatever had been harvested by the people earlier is consumed, and rains have not come in time. Normally, the bad months are May and June. People really suffer, but from the end of July and August, people begin to harvest, so it is okay.
Again, when you're talking about the roadmap to peace, November 12th is the next date for the pre-transitional government. How far down the road are you towards building the cantonments for joint cantonments for military personnel from all sides, screening them, having infrastructure to keep them in those camps?
Well, this is a good question. We have started now. Very few though, but I think by the end of this month, we'll have covered a good number of them.
Right.
Now we are marked about 8. We will continue deep until we are able to cover maybe over 80 cantonment areas. We have started now.
Another part of the disagreement is possibly the number of states that South Sudan will have. How far down the road are you towards reaching an agreement on that?
There is a body called IBC. This is established by the agreement, and this body is going all over the country to asking people how many states do you want, and so on. And I think the information I've collected is that over 90% of the people want more states. Actually, the 32 plus, they need more. Because, naturally, people want more services to come to them. They want more development to come to them rather than to travel all the way to the center, which is Juba, very far from some of the areas given the size of the country. So the majority of the people pursue, over 90%, they want more states. Yeah.
Vice President, in terms of, again, in the past, all sides have been accused of human rights violations, of using sex as a tool of war. Child soldiers are issues that have come up in the past. How do you visualize handling that issue with the people who are proven to be guilty in terms of the top, not at the bottom? Is a South African model of something that you would consider?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's even more than that. Some have already been taken to court, and others, in fact, have been sentenced to various sentences, some long-term imprisonments, and of them short-term and so on. Others are still to undergo trial. So,
but some would say these are foot soldiers. These are not the people in charge.
The people in charge, we have in this agreement what we call the Truth Commission.
Yeah.
And this Truth Commission, which you want to liken it to the South African one, will begin its work according to the metrics, because we have a metric set down in which every institution should begin to implement the part of the agreement assigned to it.
And on that road to peace, where would you rate your country in terms of human rights, freedom of speech? There has been a recent arrest and sentencing of an economist, and the actual treason charges were dropped. But it's possibly that he's been sentenced for speaking to the international media. How far have you progressed in free speech and human rights.
Who is being charged for having talked to
I
Igga?
forget the name, but there's an economist who has been sentenced, not only charged. I think it is Peter. I don't remember the exact name.
No, that one is not sentenced as yet.
Right.
But has been arrested, yes. And the case is now in front of the court. I think it is now the court to take its course.
Right.
And like any other fellow who has been charged, will definitely get his rights. And in terms of freedom, of course, of the press, we are very, very free there. And this is why I'm talking to you freely, you are talking to me freely. This is a proof that we allow this. Otherwise, I would have said, no, don't come to me, you people, I don't want to talk to them. But some of the things are being exaggerated, you see. We cherish democracy, we cherish freedoms, we cherish human rights, and so on.
In the past, you have been quoted as saying you will not give up your post for Dr. Riek Machar when he comes back. Do you still stand by that position?
Who told you in the past?
It's been reported.
It is interesting that you have known so much about South Sudan. Indeed, this has been my third time to step down for the group of Riek, as a matter of fact, and for Riek himself since 91. And when Riek broke away during the time of Dr. John went to Khartoum for some 11 years. When he came back, I was, of course, there number 3. Then he said he wants position number 3. So people were looking around. Dr. John said, number 3 is only you. And what do we do? With difficulty, I say, work for the sake of peace. So I stepped down. Now this time in 2015, again Riek, I was number 2. Now in government. Riek said he wants position number 2, as if as if he was looking for somebody called James Wani. With difficulty, then I say, okay, for the sake of peace. So I stepped down. The third one was the one recently. I also stepped down. But it should not be taken as a game on the daily basis that one will always expect to step down. You know, everything in this world has limit. I hope and I have put peace as number 1 in our country. Anyone can sacrifice for the sake of a bigger peace, so be it. As long as our country will move away from this uncalled for conflicts, and we move to reconciliation, we move to stability, and so prosperity. One would love that. So we can harvest even much more than what we are losing.
Sure. We've talked about how much India is contributing, soft power, scholarships. So many South Sudanese come to India and become doctors and other high architects. Can I bring to your notice the fact that about 40 South Sudanese who were on government scholarships studying in Andhra Pradesh are not being able to go back, and in fact, a major time of their term, the money wasn't coming in. The university let them continue. They are now engineers, but there's not any money. There's no money coming in from the South Sudan government for them to go back home.
Yes, you are absolutely right there. You know, our economy has been a little bit dislocated, you know, by the last conflict, really. That one is no secret. And it became difficult for us to meet many of our obligations, really. Even internally, salaries sometimes delay. But with the stability and also prices of oil also affected. It was not only the conflict. The prices have fallen to almost beyond recognition, as a matter of fact. But now it is rising, should be above 70. From something like 27 minimum 2 years ago. And that added to the difficulties. Of first, part of the oil was already stopped from production, and even the little being produced was at a throwaway price. This added to our, difficulties. So we had to depend on reserves. The reserves also found their own difficulty, and so on. And this is why we have not been able to meet some of our obligations, including this one. And yes, but we are working hard to address. Part of my coming was to hear from them. I met them.
Right.
I solved some of their problems. Others will need me to take report to Juba and sort from Juba. That's it.
Vice President James Wani Igga, it was a pleasure speaking to you here in India. And again, I hope we've been good hosts to you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.